Welcome to the Civic Pulse with David Bonnier and Brian Brady. We are really delighted to have a special guest today who can help illuminate Canadian-American relations and how far they have fallen in the last couple months, and hopefully maybe some rays of hope we can build on, plus the upcoming Canadian election. So we have Brian Mays. He's represented the St. Vital ward since November 2011 in Winnipeg. He served on the Executive Policy Council for over 11 years. He chaired 4 different committees during that time, including Water, Waste, and Environment. That's a big one, for almost 8 years, making him one of the longest serving members in the history of the EPC. Brian also resides in St. Vital's with his wife, Dr. Allison Marshall, and their 2 sons. In his spare time, he coaches basketball and soccer. That's pretty cool. And he's a retired marathon runner whose career peaked with a top 15 finish in Manitoba. Why did it peak, Brian? We got to hear that story. But welcome to the Civic Pulse. Good to see you. How are you guys doing?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing well. I can cover everything from elections to marathon running and beyond. So thank you for having me on.
Great. Well, tell us a little bit. We always start with the journey. How did you get into public service? And you've been doing it a long time. You sound like the quintessential great public servant.
Well, thank you. I mean, I never thought I would do this. I thought maybe I'd, be a background, a speechwriter or something, but got active. I grew up here in Winnipeg, then had a long stint in Toronto and ran for city council there. I got active actually on, there was this proposed condo building in a park, and I thought I should go to a public meeting on that. That doesn't sound like a great idea. And it took over my life for 2 years. And the city council at the time was a guy named Jack Layton, who later went on to become federal party leader in Canada for the NDP. So that gave me the bug about municipal politics. We ended up back in Brandon. My wife got hired as a prof in Brandon, Manitoba. I became a school trustee, which is a part-time thing. And then I was a lawyer, union negotiator, then became a lawyer. And then when we got back here, the St. Vital city councilor suddenly resigned. And I thought, now or never. So here I am 14 years later. And it's been a great run and gotten to know a lot of people through politics, including a friend of mine, Scott Paul, who used to work for David, and connection there. So yeah, it's been a big part of my life, but it's always some ups and downs in politics, but happy to be here. And certainly I feel I've worked on a lot of campaigns, so I can certainly talk a bit about what we're going through right now.
Well, it's nice that you're here. It's good to see you again too. We talked on the phone. We've known each other, Brian, for maybe 30 some years, I would say, wouldn't you? Yeah.
Yes.
Something like that. And he's always had an interest in policy and in politics and in progressive politics as well. You don't have too many people saying they were a labor negotiator, a labor leader in our country, more so than yours, but in ours. Yeah. So that's really refreshing to hear as well. I want to start off, if I could, Brian, is talking to you about the attitude between Canadians and Americans today, from the Canadian perspective primarily. When I was in the Congress, my district is, as you know, bordered Canada, Ontario, and right across the river, St. Clair River, was one of the largest crossings into Canada over the Blue Water Bridge that linked Port Huron, Michigan, with Lambton, Sarnia-Lambton area. And so we did a lot of things with the Canadians when we have Peace and Friendship Days on the 2nd of July, which I believe is Canadian Day, if I'm not mistaken.
July 1.
July 1, yeah.
Yeah.
Or we would do 2nd because it was between the 4th of July and the 1st. That's how I get the 2nd in my head. We would have a day where we would spend the day with each other, the leaders of our communities, the local communities, school people, elected officials. They'd come over to our place one year, Port Huron usually. We'd go over to Lambton or Sarnia, and we would talk about issues, and we talk about just friendship. And we did a lot of things together, and we built these relationships that allowed us to build a new bridge into Canada or into the United States. It's the Blue Water Bridge. It took quite a while to get that done, but we did it because we worked together closely at it. We built a rail tunnel underneath the St. Clair River, which was a huge, important, successful thing that provided more avenues for commerce. We worked on water quality. I mean, I could go on and on and on with issues that we collaborated on, and we did it in a friendly, fun way. Actually, we did it because we knew each other and liked each other, and which was really, really great. So those are the kinds of things that I remember about our association with our brothers and sisters in Canada, and that's changed, and unfortunately, for the worst, I think, because of our president's pronunciations and with regard to insults, I should say, Canada becoming the 51st state in the United States, so, and other things he's done as well, as you know. So tariffs, of course, is primarily in them. But maybe you can just kind of share with me or us some of the feelings and ideas that you have about what's transpired, as Brian mentioned, in the last couple of months.
It really is. I mean, I'm 63, and it's unprecedented in my memory, anything like this. I mean, it's usually a very good relationship, and people, I have cousins who grew up in Canada who live in the States. Everybody has most everybody has a version of that. And yeah, in fairly short order, we've gone from pretty good cooperation to people booing the American national anthem at hockey games and stuff. It just seems unimaginable in some ways. And it isn't just the tariffs, but it's the tariffs combined with this rather odd, 51st state and Governor Trudeau and all that stuff that just got people very upset. And the smaller stuff now, people who are going south for a couple of months, and there's thousands of people who go down to the States to get out of the winter.
Oh yeah,
and people are having trouble at the border and their phones being checked and register. It's just a whole host of irritants, and it has massively influenced the election campaign we're in. But yeah, I suppose this too shall pass would be the easy thing to say, and it will, I suppose. But yeah, it's been very unfortunate and economically damaging.
It's going to leave a mark, though, for a while. I don't think this is just going to go away. I think it's going to be around as long as Trump and some of his followers are around, and I don't see that changing. Well, it won't change for 4 years.
It won't change for 4 years. Yeah.
So it's really unfortunate. My grandfather and grandmother migrated from Ukraine. They came to Canada first, so they lived for 7 years in Ontario, basically. And then they came over in 1919. And ironically, they were thrown in prison. And when they got to the United States, because my grandfather had on his passport that he was from the Habsburg Empire, which was aligned with the Central Powers in the First World War. So, he had been in Canada for 7 years, but that didn't matter. They just threw him in the clinker. And my cousins were born in prison. That's where my aunt had her child. But anyway, and my father, on the other side of the family, moved down to Florida to get some sun when he was an older guy like I am. And I remember it's in, what was the name of the city? Near Fort Lauderdale. But you can go down there and you can get French newspapers and you can get Canadian newspapers because they have a huge Canadian population down there in the winter. Are you still there with us, Brian?
Yes, I'm here. Can you? Oh, did we lose?
Yeah, I think I lost them. Do you have it?
Am I back?
There you are. You're back.
You're back. Sorry.
Yeah. I left off with my grandfather, but then I switched to my father, who in Pompano Beach, Florida, had lived for 30 years at the end of his life. So I'm familiar with all the Canadians down there. You can get Canadian newspapers, and there's a lot of Canadian culture in Southern Florida. So you're right. Yeah. I want to show you something quickly. I found was looking around yesterday about Canada, and these are a couple billboards, and I don't know that you can
What does it say, David? We can't read it.
We can't-
Yeah, I'll read them to you. These are in Canada, and basically here, this one reward says, let's see, come on, David, don't you're on the show now. You can't be messing with this. Basically, America should be placed under Canada's. America should be placed under Canada's legal guardianship until a competent adult can be found to take it over.
Yeah, so all of that, like, I mean, it's unprecedented, really. I mean, and in 1988 we had an election that really hinged on the free trade agreement, on
Right.
not NAFTA, but to proceed like just the Canada-US, and that was a monumental, historic campaign, and this is like the successor to that, weirdly. Sort of how do we respond to this threat, or how serious is it? So yeah, it's been all of this history. It's very it's both unfortunate, and will take some time to patch up, but also just the economic uncertainty and people being laid off, and it's certainly have taken a toll.
Yeah.
Mike,
I have another one here. It says, has anyone tried unplugging the United States and plugging it back in? The billboard in Canada.
Someone's paying for this.
that's a good one.
So anyway, I won't go on and on. I could. There are lots of examples.
Brian, how do you feel your current Prime Minister, Mark Carney, he went to school in the States. He's an international economist. I think my brother went to school with him, said he was a nice guy. How do you think he's handling this so far? Has he been tough? Has he been soft? Has he been what's been his strategy?
I mean, it's just unbelievable. I mean, the poll, they've come up like 30% in the polls in a couple of months, very short order. And it's, I think everyone realizes the guy is smart. The guy seems calm. I think there's a little bit of the, suddenly he's out there in his skates, and I was a hockey guy, and I love the well, come on, man. Like, you were living in Europe for a good chunk of your adult life, but leaving that, all politics, we all do some of that, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, I think he's handled it pretty well. He hasn't gotten into the name calling or anything. So how that's going to play out to 10 or 12, these are very short campaigns compared to US standards, right? It's a 38-day campaign, so it plays out quickly. Yeah.
April 28, right?
Yeah, 7th or 8th. Yeah.
And Trump is now everyone's out thinking. Everyone's like, Trump said something about, I'd rather deal with Carney than the other guy, and then Poilievre, and people are saying, it's some double game by Trump. He really does want to deal with Poilievre, but he's luring, like, you start looking like triple game. So yeah, I mean, that's very Trumpian, I suppose, just constant misdirection. But things.
Give us Americans a thumbnail of the main candidates here in
the
race.
So first, British style, right? So you fairly frequently have minority parliaments where one party does not get half the seats, so they have to form a coalition with another party, and that's what we've had the last 4 years. For the last 2 years, the Conservatives have been riding a big wave, probably about 40% of the polls. The Liberals down in the low 20s under Justin Trudeau. The NDP just behind them, the further left party, the NDP, and then a true Canadian curiosity, the Bloc Québécois, pro-Quebec party riding at about 6 or 7%. Massive change as soon as Trudeau left. The Conservatives only came down a little, but the NDP dropped from about 20 to 8, and it all went to the Liberals. So you have this wild swing of people you didn't think had a hope. I have friends running in this for all the parties, and Marty Morantz was a guy who I was a councillor with 4 months ago. I would have said, well, that's so he's fine, but now it's this dogfight. So it is. I mean, the current betting would be probably a Liberal minority or majority, but the NDP faces decimation or elimination is probably a better term. So they'll be down to a handful of seats. It's like, so odd developments here. And not a very good campaign being run by the NDP, I would say, who need to go after Carney if they have a hope of surviving. But yeah, so it's more like the British system than the American system.
Yeah, but you were telling me that even though the even if the Liberals did not get the plurality, the highest plurality party vote, it's possible that they still could retain power because of the districts that they're elected from tend to be
Good
heavily.
point there. Yeah, it's like the great trivia question that Winston Churchill never won the popular vote, but won elections as prime minister. Here, we've had the oddity here. The Liberals actually lost the last 2 elections in terms of popular vote, narrowly, like 34-30%.
Yeah.
But have had the most seats, and the NDP has propped them up, frankly, for the last 6 years.
Well, we have a similar situation here, as you know.
Yes, like
With
that.
Trump,
Which nobody pre-2000, nobody ever, it was like a trivia question. And then of course 2000, and then again. So,
right.
Yeah. In what party, Brian, are you?
I have been an NDPer for a long time, probably 40 years. I'm helping one candidate this time, who's an NDPer, who's running in Winnipeg Centre riding, I've not been pleased with the campaign, but there's some very decent, honorable people. So this woman named Leah Gazan, I'll be helping her out.
So you were from St. Vital. Is that how you pronounce it?
No, St. Vital, actually.
Vital. I said it wrong.
Yes,
St. Vital. Now, you grew up in that riding.
Yeah.
Dan.
Yeah.
I looked up the history of St. Vital. And I learned that it was a saint in the 1st century, Christian saint in the 1st century. And anyway, I won't go into that, but I have a whole set of the lives of the saints here that
there's a part of the swirling Canadian situation, right? That there are a few people who want to rename this district because of its association with Indigenous history here, and it's a long tale. But there was a major street in my ward renamed from Bishop Grandin Boulevard to Abinogi-Mickinaw, which is an Indigenous term, and it's Canada still wrestling with the history of the residential schools and the basic treatment of the Indigenous people. So that will be going on, I suspect, long after I'm gone. Is this reconciliation process? And
we have
Winnipeg.
Our grandsons live on Capitol Hill and went to a public school. John Tyler, and if you ever look up the history of John Tyler, he was one of the most racist presidents, probably the most that we've ever had. In fact, he was in the 1830s or 40s, I can't remember. But after the Civil War, he joined the other side during the Civil War, the Confederate side, after he had been president.
Yeah.
And he was just a terrible guy at a lot of different levels. So my wife and I got active in trying to get the name changed, but we could never get anywhere. But all of a sudden, when this stuff broke, a lot of people got involved in it, and now it's Shirley Chisholm.
Very good.
So big thing, and it was primarily an African American school in the first place. And anyway, it was interesting.
Well, it's interesting because this campaign, you would have thought issues like this would have been talked about more, but it really has just been Trump, tariffs. It's been pretty straightforward. So we'll see. Carney's certainly still in the lead, but 2 debates this week, one in French, which is a uniquely Canadian thing, I think, to have debates in different, maybe Belgium does it, but debate in French and then debate in English Thursday night.
I miss being in Detroit because, and I'll stop here, Brian. I miss being in Detroit because we get the Canadian stations in Michigan, and I used to follow the Canadian elections religiously. I still get the CBC feed, and I try to read it every day, every other day, and these debates are really wonderful. It'll be great to watch. Now, hopefully, not as painful as we have to go through in the Trump Biden debate. Oh, that was just horrifically painful.
That was about as painful as it gets. So it seems like every politician around the globe is raising their profile and winning polling points by fighting Trump or coming out against Trump. Is that the same kind of positioning each of the Canadian candidates are doing? Is who can be the most stridently anti-Trump or poetically anti-Trump?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's fair. I mean, it's which probably plays to the advantage of the incumbent, but I mean, the incumbent has only been prime minister since March 16th or something. I mean, Trudeau timed his exit brilliantly, and often that strategies don't work in Canadian politics. Brian Mulroney left, Kim Campbell replaced him. They went down to 2 seats. It just destroyed that party. But here we have the reverse, the late exit, and then Carney has come in and had some conversations with Trump. I don't think anything, and day to day, it's on, it's off, it's on the auto, it's on aluminum. Now it isn't. No one can keep track. So yeah, I mean, there's just sort of a general. The other thing I've been told is, well, people in Quebec might be less likely to vote for the separatist or quasi, because they'll be worried about what the threat from the U.S. So they may park their vote with the Liberal Party, but we'll see. I don't profess to be an expert on Quebec politics.
Oh, that's it. Yeah, it seems like Sheinbaum in Mexico suddenly has 85% popularity by taking on Trump, and Carney has risen. So there's a reverse impact going on. We were wondering too if Canada would be willing to take the blue states and we could secede and join Canada. Would you take us, Brian?
When I was a candidate for Toronto City Council in 97, and Jane Jacobs, the urbanist, lived in our ward and wasn't endorsing me, I'll say, but she was on about, Toronto should secede from Ontario because the rest of the province voted for the Conservatives. And I got up at some public meeting and said, you don't break up the province because of one election, man. Like, come on. So I think I probably got more applause for that than anything else I said in that defeated that unfortunate campaign. But I mean, it'll I don't know what'll happen with but the Democrats still are 48% or whatever. So
we'll come back. And
I know they've taken a lot of in the economic aspect of all of this, a lot of the Canadian liquor and beer stores, wine stores, they've taken American products off their shelf.
I know, it was quite emotional. I walked in and it was like, whoa. A, I didn't realize you had this much American product. B, that's got to hurt some producers.
That's got to hurt.
It was startling.
And I understand like the visitations, tourism is down, way down. It's like 30% to 40% it's down.
Well, you got people from the CBC calling all of the councillors saying, are any of you going to the US? And then you say, well, I'd already booked this conference. And, we all had a version of, I've already booked this thing and I'm not going to forfeit it. But man, we've never had that before. So.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable. So David and I wanted to float an idea. It's his idea. But David, you want to say,
well,
we want to start
the day when I heard it on TV, when Trump talked about having Canada become the 51st state, right after I heard it, I said, I'm going to do something about this. This is not right. This is not good. So I called up Brian. I says, we should get some T-shirts made, and Americans for Canadian sovereignty or something that that would be catchy. I said it probably would help us with the viewership on this podcast.
Well, yeah, something like it's. I think most people feel badly about this. I think no one. All the unfortunate crap, the booing of the national anthems and stuff. That's, although I don't, there's got to be some way around this. And our election's done on April 28th, but then where do we go from there? I guess.
Yeah. Well,
I think it's a good idea, and I'm going to ask ChatGPT to come up with a catchier name for us.
Yes, catchier. Sovereignty is too long. Yes.
Yeah.
Stand up for Canada. I just put it in a ChatGPT.
SAC,
Americans, yeah, SUP suck. Then I don't think that would work too well. Americans for a Free Canada.
Yeah,
That's pretty good. So we'll work on this, Brian. But would you be our liaison to our new political action committee?
yes, I would.
Americans.
I would love to do that. Yeah, I mean, there's still some. I mean, we have a U.S. envoy here in Winnipeg. I didn't know that before I got elected, but there's a huge presence back and forth.
Oh yeah.
I always thought of Canada as sort of our more mature cousins, but I guess the Trumpers saw of you as more the little nephews that they could just pull into the.
Well, it's sort of baffled. I mean, I think everyone's still kind of stunned. Like, none of this was before the inauguration. I guess post-election day this has been coming on, but it still came out of nowhere. So.
Yeah.
One last thing to weigh in on here before we sign off is Bill Maher, who's pretty watched a lot here on American TV, went and he's been a critic of Trump's. Went to the White House at the invitation and came back saying, "Oh, he's kind of a nice guy in private." And I just want to get your two reactions on that, on a media personality going and having some meatloaf with this guy. And would you have done that, David?
No, I've watched him once or twice on TV, and I always thought he was an ass. Really,
Maher.
First class
really
jerk. And so he's got a little bit of humor, but deep down, I would not trust that guy to save myself.
I will be a politician and avoid that. And I want to thank David for what he's doing for Ukraine, because Ukraine's a big always had big history here. I can see out my office window Osserodok, the Ukrainian museum in Winnipeg. And a friend of mine's just to become executive director, so I should connect you. But Ukraine's like different waves here. The people from the 1800s, post-war, and I took Ukrainian in junior high school and fumble through a few words here and there, but it's been a huge shock, I think, and a lot of people now coming in here and settling, so it's kind of a third wave of.
Well, Canadians have been great supporters of Ukraine in this battle, so I want to thank you for that. I know you have a lot of Ukrainian Canadians in Canada, and I think there were like 15. I looked it up. I think there are 15% of Winnipeggers.
It's a big deal here. Like Cyrillic. I mean, I took the Cyrillic alphabet when I was 12. Unfortunately, I didn't keep it, but would be a useful skill to have. But no, it's been a big part of the culture here. And the surnames. I was at school with Iwanica and Anonchuk and Zelenowicz, and it's always been a big thing here. So hopefully maybe we can get you up here or connect with you somehow on our Ukrainian initiatives.
I love to do that. And if we get that program going, Brian,
let's do it.
We could develop a really good crowd up there in Canada, and we could maybe move over there and run for the parliament, run for different ridings.
My wife is Ukrainian, so I didn't know that she had so many long lost cousins up north. This is new intel for me.
Oh yeah, it's always been as long as I can remember, it's been a big part of the background here, and with the unfortunate with the invasion and the war, it's come forward again, really.
Yeah. Oh, fascinating. Well, Brian, this has been, it's good to know that you're still speaking to us after all the
thank you.
The rigmarole.
No,
yes.
We were sad. We were losing our Canadian friends. My goodness.
I know. Well, people get, I had my old running coach trying to sell his place down in Arizona, and it's, people, understandably, the market dipped, and it's traumatic for people on a very human level. So yeah, we got to get past it.
Yeah.
This is not an easy time, but thank you for solidarity, and we will be reaching out when we have a catchy name, Brian.
That would be great.
Your support. Yes,
and thank you for all you've done in your work as a council person and councillor, I guess, in Winnipeg. How do you say it? Winnipeg or Winnipeg?
Winnipeg, yep.
Winnipeggers or Winnipeggies?
Winnipeggers, yeah.
Winnipeg.
And thanks for your work. I mean, I know you had a good long run down there in Michigan. So thank you. For
Yeah,
that.
yeah, it was good when we did it. Yeah, all the best to you. Give my best to your two sons and your wife, and congratulations.
And say hi to Judy for me, please.
I will. Okay.
All right.
Take care.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Thanks.
Bye-bye.